All right, guys, back here in the Philippines, and today's topic is one that was requested by people in the comments, and it's what it's like to be married to a Filipina, or in other words, what it's like to have a wife who is from the Philippines. So I'll be going at it about this from an American perspective, and specifically what it's like being in the United States and having a wife from the Philippines. So let's jump into it right now. All right, so first thing is that families are very important to people in the Philippines. And so expect that your Filipino wife is going to be using Facebook Messenger or Skype or some other video calling platform at the wee early hours of your time in America or late at night in the United States. You're going to start hearing Bisaya or Tagalog spoken and people laughing, and there's going to be 4 or 5 people on one of these video calls going. So in my case, my family, with my wife's family, she's got siblings in the United States, she's got siblings that work in the Middle East, she's got siblings that are offshore seamen, and of course our core family back in the Philippines. So you've got 4 or 5, sometimes 6 people talking on one of these video conference calls from all different points of the world, different time zones, and everybody's kind of linking up. So where we lived in the eastern United States, it was generally 12 hours difference behind the Philippines, or sometimes, depending on if it was daylight savings time, it would be 13 hours. So when they're coordinating the times to when everybody's awake, it generally ends up being that early morning hours or those late night hours. The second thing about being married to a Filipino is Filipina she is going to communicate with you in this bizarre alien sign language that will take you a while to get used to. So when you're first married, you probably won't understand it, and sometimes you will think she's ignoring you, but she's not. It's just the way people communicate here in the Philippines. So, for example, if you ask her a question like, "Hey, darling, would you like to go out to eat tonight?" And you get a response that she doesn't look up from her phone. She just raises the eyebrows once up and down. Well, that means yes. So the first time that you experience this and you're not used to it, it's like, "Hey, would you like to go out to eat?" And you're kind of like, "Well, are you going to answer me?" And you get the eyebrow raise again, and it's like, okay. Then once you figure it out, it means yes. And then they also do this thing to where, I can't do it, but it's like it'll move up and down real fast, like 2 or 3 times. That means yes, and they're very, very excited about saying yes. Another thing, and they've got all kinds of different non-verbal answers to things all over the Philippines. But another one is you ask, "Hey, have you happened to seen where I put my watch?" And you get something like this. And it's like, okay, is she blowing me a kiss? That's nice, but where's my watch? And what it is they point with their lips. That is very, very, very Filipina. And whatever you're looking for, rather than point with their fingers, apparently that's rude, or just tell you it's over there, you're going to get Filipina sign language of pointing with the lips. Number 3, so if you get sick, no matter if she's mad at you or happy with you or whatnot, you are immediately going to be taken care of. She is going to go into full nursing mode. I kid you not. That it is natural to that culture that they just make excellent nurses, and they really do take care of you when you get ill. They're going to make sure that you're fed. They're going to make sure that you have any medicine you need. They're going to make sure that you're comfortable in those regards. And generally, they're going to be on the phone with every single relative that they've got who happens to be somehow related to the medical profession to figure out what they need to do to take care of you. It's a very nice thing, and it's just it's what they do. Okay, your Filipino wife is going to scold the children in her native tongue. In my case, that's Messiah. So when one of the children does something bad or something that she doesn't like, she's going to start going off on them in her native tongue. The problem is the kids won't speak any English, and so they're kind of going to look over at you like, Dad, I know she's mad, but I have no clue what she's saying, other than that the dragon has come out. Okay, your Filipino wife is going to be really, really weird when it comes to money. So anything to do with food or spending money on food or snacks and things like that, she has no problems doing. By God, she has no problem spending money on food and buying whatever she wants to as far as snacks and things to eat. But then things get weird in other respects with the money. So if you've got something broken at the house that's going to require a service person to come, she just doesn't see the need in wasting that money. So you've got a dryer that has broken. She's going to get on YouTube and figure out how she fixes that thing. She's going to call you or message you at work and tell you to bring this part home. And then when you get there, the dryer is going to be disassembled. She's going to throw the part in, put everything back together, and it actually works. But the heck if she's actually going to pay anybody to fix that, because it would be a waste of money. It's also very funny with tipping. So the Philippines is not a tipping culture. You really don't see tipping in the Philippines. And so getting her used to being in America and tipping when you go out to eat it's like pulling teeth in the beginning, because she'll be like, why did I tip them? They're already getting paid. Because it is a cultural difference, and it's one that she's going to have to get used to. She gets really curry pot or very tight with the money when it comes to service people, things like that, and also with clothing. So when we had first several years, actually many years after living in America, we'd be at like Walmart or something, just passing through, and she would look over at some clothes, and she would look at it, looks like she likes it, and then she would look at the tag on it, and then it would be like, she would grunt and walk away because it was too expensive. And I'd look at it and it's like, it was like $20. And she's like, she can figure out a way to get 10 other shirts for the same cost of money. So it's very odd, the reaction to how they spend money. And they are able to save a lot of money, though. I will admit that. Next is the dreaded tampo. Okay, so if you don't know what tampo is, if you're a Westerner, or not from the Philippines, it's basically the silent treatment that they take to a completely different level, like days. And you generally will have absolutely no idea why they're upset. Whatever you think they're upset about is 99% of the time not what they're upset about. And so basically, they're just not going to talk to you or anybody around you for hours, for days, for however long it takes until they can get their emotions under control. Now, when you first see this happen, it's shocking. You're like, how do you handle this? And the truth is that most, at least American men, never do. But if you can get it under control and get it under control very quickly during your marriage, then everything works out and you don't have to deal with it anymore. Honestly, when I first came back to the Philippines, I'd done a video and somebody had mentioned it. That's why I'm talking about it in this here, is somebody mentioned it in the comments, and it was like, you forgot to talk about tampo. And I cracked up because I had totally forgotten about it, because it didn't even last the first year of our marriage. I mean, I just, I put it into that and wasn't going to deal with it, and we were going to act like adults. But for most people, they're never able to do that. But again, I thought it was hilarious because I'd completely forgotten about the concept of it until I got back here in the Philippines and somebody mentioned it in the comments. All right, finally, time is a completely different concept in the Philippines than it is back in the United States. So, and this one, I'll tell you, this one really was, my wife's a little bit different, but with most of my friends and most of my clients that had Filipino wives, this was very, very true, especially when they first came over. So there is like real time, American time, and then there is Filipino time. And basically in the Philippines, if you've got a party or an event or something that's scheduled, people are just going to show up late, an hour late, an hour and 20 minutes late. Nobody comes on time to just about anything, at least in a social gathering capacity. And so when you're getting ready to go, say you're going to go meet with your parents in America to go have dinner, and it's going to be at, say, 6 o'clock. Well, 5:30 rolls around, you're like, hey, we need to leave so we can get there on time, and she's just now getting ready. So that, again, that I didn't experience that, because I'll explain in a minute, but a lot of times that's the case. They want to show up seasonably late. Now, my wife is different. She always, from the time I met her, she always was very punctual and wanted to be early to places, which was very unusual from anybody else that I'd ever met in the Philippines. She takes it to a totally different level. Like, we would go, when we were in the Philippines, we would go to meet her family and go to church with them on Sunday. And so she's like, we've got to get there, we got to hurry, everybody's going to be there. And church had started at, like, say 9 o'clock, and she wanted to be there by 8:30. And I was like, the one dragging them, like, well, why are we going at 8:30? Nobody's going to be there. And she's like, yes, they'll be waiting. So we get there at 8:30, and of course nobody shows up till like 9:30. So she was kind of the opposite of that. And she does that with her family too. She'll be like, she'll call them, we'll be setting up a meeting or a get together or whatever, and she'll yell at her sisters and be like, tell them, it's 6 o'clock, and she's like, not Filipino time. So that's something you got to get used to. Being married to a Filipino or living in the Philippines, is that it's much more like, I would say, in Latin America that we're used to in the United States, of things just move slower and people don't take time as seriously, at least in a social gathering state. All right, so that's what it's like being married to a Filipina from an American perspective in the United States. Now, obviously, guys, every Filipina is different. They come from different regions. They're all unique personalities. These are generalizations, but it happens often enough that it's kind of funny, and it is kind of true, and stuff that you have to deal with if you're an American married to a Filipina, and that your Filipina is bringing to the table when she comes to the United States, because she's coming from a totally different culture, that there are some major differences and things that you would not like, she seems to think is normal, and things that she doesn't like, you seem to think is how it's normal. Thanks, guys. If you like this, subscribe, give it a thumbs up if you want to see more content like this, and leave a comment below. This video came from a comment. If there's other stuff you want to see, and I'll make a video on that if enough people are asking for it, like they were in this one.